The other day we heard Dr. Fauci, the guy that everyone knows, loves, and trusts, said Americans have an independent spirit, but now it's time to do what you're told. That's what he said. Okay, he didn't say it quite like that. He said, now it's time to do what you're told. I'm sorry, that's not how this country works. We have a constitution. But I'll tell you what, if you come to me and say, Tim, there is a very serious pandemic. Okay, it's got, most people are going to survive and they'll be okay, but there are lingering health effects. Kind of scary. Yeah, seriously, like 20% have some kind of lingering health effect after getting COVID, and people will die. So far, 250 or so thousand people have lost their lives, and that's horrifying. You come to me and you say something like this, and I'm going to be like, okay, what do we do? What do we do? If you come to me and say we need to lock down the country for 15 days, I'm going to say, okay, 15 days doesn't sound so bad. But then it never ends, and therein lies the big problem. They've opened the door. They've said, come on inside for only a little bit. Stay only a little while. And then once you walked in, they slammed it shut, locked it, and say, welcome to the party. And the worst part is what we're seeing now. You see, I don't think these despotic, fascistic, Democratic governors actually care about any of this. They're just, in my opinion, locking things down because they don't want to be responsible. We've already seen the World Health Organization saying no more lockdowns. And what do we get now? Well, you get Fauci saying, do what you're told. Do what you're told, he says. And who is telling us what to do? Why, it's people like Governor Gavin Newsom, who apologizes for flouting his own coronavirus restrictions by attending a 50th birthday party with 12 friends at a 3-star Michelin restaurant where a tasting menu costs up to $850. I love it. We really are seeing the divide in this country between the two parties, aren't we? Joe Biden, the candidate of Wall Street, the big banks, the international interests, and the wealthy managerial elite. And Donald Trump, crass, crude, boorish, and boastful, the candidate of working class people. Now, not completely. I mean, Democrats have people on their in their party who represent working class people, and Republicans have their special interest factions as well. But it's increasingly becoming this obvious. Why, it's not just about good old Gavin Newsom, isn't it? It's also about Nancy Pelosi. Pelosi cancels lavish Capitol dinner for new members after being shamed for flouting COVID restrictions and branded a hypocrite for telling families not to hold Thanksgiving parties. Isn't that funny? Watching that video of Lori Lightfoot in Chicago going out in the streets and dancing and bullhorning, Biden wins, and then immediately going, but if you do it, you'll be arrested. Yeah. The elites, they know it's good for you. They know it's better for you. So listen to them, shut up, and as Fauci said, do what you're told. Okay. Here's the point. If someone comes to me and tells me there's a very serious pandemic and we want to save lives, I will say, I will do my best. You can count on me. But what am I supposed to think when these people don't follow their own rules? Surely they must be lying. And is it any surprise then that we see this? Kristi Noem won't enforce lockdown or a mask mandate. This is in South Dakota. You see, in North Dakota, they're announcing a mask mandate and more lockdowns. But in South Dakota, Kristi Noem says, we ain't going to do it. Interesting. Republicans, huh? Crazy old Republicans. Governor Tate Reeves says Mississippi not going to participate in potential national lockdown. Reeves said such a move would have too steep an impact on the economy. Okay. Well, we can see some states. I'm pretty sure this dude's a Republican. I could be wrong. But we can see some states saying no and many saying yes. Joe Biden, bring it on. And we'll see how it plays out in the courts. In, I believe, Michigan and Pennsylvania, they've already ruled that these edicts by their governors were unconstitutional. So while New York and New Jersey are locking down once again, Pennsylvania can't. Good. Isn't it wonderful, this thing we have called the Constitution, which prevents despots from taking power? I love it because, all of these states would be suppressed by Joe Biden's national lockdown plan were it not for this Constitution. And that's what Joe Biden is proposing. He's proposing a national mask mandate, assuming he comes into office. It's looking like Joe Biden is on track. We'll see how things play out. Donald Trump certainly has his legal plans in place. And look, I don't know what's going to happen. With Trump, it's seeming more and more slim by the day, but we'll see. You do not underestimate your opponent. And that's a lesson the Democrats should have learned a long time ago, but they don't do it. I don't know what's going to happen, but I tell you what, in the event we get a Joe Biden presidency, his advisor has already said 6-week national lockdown. And you know what's going to happen? He's going to ignore it. He's going to do whatever he wants. He's going to go to his fancy dinners. He's going to have everything perfectly catered for him. But you, rabble, the peasants, will have to just go wanting. Your business is destroyed like they were last time, and now they've come to finish them off. Isn't it amazing how the Democrats have completely allowed for actions that have destroyed the lives of the small business? I mean, take a look at the COVID lockdowns. We all thought 15 days to slow the spread was going to be a good idea. Even Trump was saying it. We went well beyond 15 days, didn't we? And many industries, like the movie theater industry, for instance, small business and restaurants decimated. You know who isn't decimated? Amazon. Everybody just orders everything from Amazon now. Give all your money to the corporate power and the corporate overlords. Walmart, big box stores. Okay. So the COVID lockdown destroyed small business. What next did Democrats allow? Mass rioting. Telling their police to stand down, releasing the rioters, and once again, smashing and destroying small businesses and the livelihoods of many who live in these cities. It's almost like they like watching your life be ruined. It's almost like they like watching the rabble fight over toilet paper in Walmart. It's creepy, isn't it? You know, I was talking to Alex Jones on my podcast. YouTube took it down. We're working on it. We're trying to get it put back up. We'll see what happens. And in the event that we don't, I have an idea that I think people would find very satisfactory. But we'll get to that. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Anyway, he talks about how there are elites and, they're probably thinking they're doing the right thing to save the planet. And in order to do so, they have to suppress, curtail, and destroy this consumerist economy. It's actually an interesting point. Because to be fair, I've long thought about what happens if we just carry on as we are. And certainly there's a certain point where we need to figure out what we as a planet are doing. Now, for the most part, I think individual liberties are paramount. But I'm not a laissez-faire capitalist. I'm not an anarchist or even a staunch libertarian. I'm fairly libertarian in most places. But I do think we need to understand common goal and, working towards something as a community, as a nation, and also as a global community. What I mean by this is there was a period where this nation came together to go to the moon. We were all super excited for it. We used to have, although we have, our Constitution and our freedoms, we still were like, this is what we as a nation will do. I think we need something like that. And I think we can do things as part of, international cooperation. The problem, the challenge, we believe in individual liberties. China does not. China puts people in camps for thinking the wrong things. They've got Uyghur Muslims in these camps, and it's horrifying. I am absolutely down to participate in some kind of national or global initiative to do something really, really cool. Something really, really great. Go to Mars, go to the moon, develop cold fusion technology or other crazy technologies. I'd love it. The problem is they ask of us something they themselves would not do. It's the old adage of the general leading the charge of the military on the horse and, charge saying, I would not send my men in to do something I would not do myself. Today, well, that's what the Democrats have become. And then some Republicans, don't get me wrong, for the most part, I think Democrats and Republicans are all pretty bad. The Republicans are slightly less bad in many ways, mostly like, you got Kristi Noem, for instance. Right now, we're getting the opposite of leadership. We're getting wealthy, privileged elites who think they're smarter than you and better than you, and they think they deserve more than you. And thus you, the rabble, must have your lives destroyed, for you must sacrifice everything for the good of this planet. Don't fly in your plane. Those plane tickets, it's so much carbon emissions. My word, just walk. Meanwhile, they're flying in luxury jets and they're flying in, and they're living in big mansions that consume more energy than like the average 10 homes. And then you get people like Greta Thunberg, the how dare you girl talking about climate change. Yeah, what did she do? Well, she said, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, and I'm not going to fly because that does produce carbon emissions. I'm just going to get a team of individuals to take a multi-million-dollar trip across the Atlantic to make it to the UN. Oh, because we could all do that, right? Meanwhile, she doesn't talk at all about China or India and their pollution. Once again, they pretend to be the leadership telling you to run into battle while they go and hide and count their fortunes. They don't actually care. There's no community here. If you actually told me that we were going to be working together towards the greater good, a big mission, like give me anything. We'll build a giant robot. I don't know. I'm down. But they don't do that. They say you sacrifice. You give up your business, your livelihood, and you better lock down. And then they go and party. And they've been doing it the whole time. We've seen what the riots did, destroying businesses. And the riots they should not have been allowed to be out under their own guidelines, but they cut these people loose. They said, we're dropping the charges. That's what I find truly remarkable in all of this. That when it came to the riots, you could argue they shouldn't have been arrested because, the police are the ones who falsely arrested them. Okay, well, what about fines for violating the COVID lockdown and curfew? Oh, your rules only apply when it's politically advantageous for you to apply them. Across Europe right now, we're starting to see the result of this despotism. In France, just a week or so ago, gridlock as people were fleeing the city. The rules in France, like you got to have your papers. I'm not exaggerating. If you want to leave your house, show them your papers. They'll stop you. What right do you have to leave your home? I have my papers here, sir. Okay, carry on. And you're probably wearing a bubble suit as it is. In Prague, in Italy, in Spain, in the UK, protests and riots have erupted over the continuing lockdowns in these places. Now, what do you think is going to happen as China carries on and grows and mass produces and pollutes, and the UK and the US are having their economies destroyed? They are seriously bringing back the lockdowns, and Biden wants a national lockdown. You see, that would override the Republican governors. He could invoke, some war powers of sorts and try and do it. It would be challenged in the courts, but he's trying to force these Republicans to do the same thing. China and a few other countries and many other countries are going to keep doing whatever they want. So while our economies are being destroyed, their economies are growing. China is an adversary to the United States. We cooperate in many ways. We negotiate, but we are dangerously close to war with China. Why would we shutter our economy at a time with increasing tensions and fears of what's called Thucydides' trap? Maybe that's the reason. You see, Thucydides' trap is this old, it's an idea that whenever a new economic power, a rising economic power comes too close to subverting or overtaking the dominant economic power, war erupts. In the last 500 years, according to an article from The Atlantic, 12 out of 16 instances resulted in war. Maybe that's what they're worried about. We can't have World War III. We know that after World War II, there was a very serious effort to make sure we never entered World War III. Maybe that's the case. We're too dangerously close to war with China. Therefore, we need to just lay down our arms, shutter our economy, and weaken ourselves so they can peacefully glide into economic dominance. I'm not saying that's actually true, but it's what's going to happen if we keep locking things down. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if these Democratic governors are just saying, look, man, I'm rich. And not even the governors, Nancy Pelosi. They're rich. What do they have to worry about? Their worst case scenario is they fly to their New Zealand mountain bunker like so many of these rich people actually have. Now, I don't know if Newsom and Pelosi have that magic bunker, but these places exist. You've got weird mountainside fortresses that rich people have bought. It's really interesting. We were researching this stuff at Vice and interviewing people. Some people have bought old missile silos and then turned them into massive bunkers because these things are supposed to be able to withstand attack from ballistic missiles. In the event of war, you want your nukes to be able to launch, right? These people have a way out. Do you? What happens when they give bunk reasons to destroy your life? The rich get richer, the poor get poorer, and we are inching ever more closer to oligarchy. You take a look at the plans from the likes of, Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders says tax the rich. Bernie Sanders talks about expanding the progressive tax. Okay, that I understand. But this idea that the left says where they say tax the rich, what they don't tell you is that they're only talking about people who make more than $250,000 a year. People who make more than $250,000 a year, by, I think, any reasonable metric, rich. Seriously. You've got more than you can, more than you need. Absolutely. And so you've got massive disposable income. You can start investing. But there's a dramatic difference between someone who makes $250K and someone who makes $25 million. The more money you have, the more power you have. So here's what ends up happening. They tax the rich, making it harder for people who are wealthy but not near the millions to climb that mountain. But once you break a certain threshold and you're making millions upon millions of dollars, you can start investing that across the board and your risk is totally mitigated. You can pay the taxes. So what? Who cares? Not only that, you know all the loopholes. You got all the best lawyers. Easier for the rich to navigate, and it makes it harder for the poor to become rich. It is curtailing upward mobility. The same is true for the way Bernie proposes the progressive tax. Even so, his goal is, make more progressive brackets going up into the millions upon millions. And I understand, and to an extent, I like the idea. The only problem is it just means the government becomes the centralized wealthy, position. There's no easy solution. There's none. But I'll tell you, the solution right now, what we're going through, we can't have these lockdowns, especially when these hypocrites are ignoring their own rules and gloating. I'll show you. We can see what happens in Europe. Check this out. Danish farmers demand end to cull of 17 million minks over coronavirus outbreak as no new cases of people infected with mutant strain are recorded. Denmark ordered a cull of all 17 million farmed mink after animals were infected with coronavirus. The virus mutated and was then passed back to humans. Farmers took to the streets in tractors to protest against the government's order. The operation has been plagued by errors, with mink left strewn across roads. Police had to issue warning after complaints over the smell from mass graves. Meanwhile, legal battles broke out over whether the cull violates the Constitution. In Denmark, at least. So there's no new cases, and they killed 17 million mink. It seems crazy. It seems like if you're going to take these actions, you gotta make sure your planning is correct. Now listen, as I was stating earlier, I think that we can't just carry on as we do. I'm not saying that we need a Green New Deal like the way Ocasio-Cortez proposes it. I do think we need a cohesive culture and some kind of national goal that can even tie into a global initiative. I'm totally fine with that. The issue is that instead of saying things like, we want you to keep your job, we want industry to function, we don't want war, we're going to do a new initiative and we're going to focus on some kind of newer technology. Those ideas are out there, and I respect the people proposing them. But instead, what we get is ban planes, build a train to Hawaii, ban farting cows, a completely unserious and childlike view of the problems we face. There are some crazy people out there with power, and they think that there's too many people, that we're overpopulated. Well, I certainly think we can't just carry on as we are, because resources are finite and just expansion isn't infinite. I think that, the solutions, we can look to someone like Elon Musk going to Mars. Not an absolute solution, but we should be focused on things like that. Here's the problem. People like Elon Musk, or Elon Musk specifically, he fired a rocket into space, and along with it, a Tesla Roadster, I think it was the Roadster. And the left got mad. Why are you wasting that money? He didn't blast the money into space. The money was spent here on Earth, on people's jobs, and they use that money to pay for goods and services. And more importantly, I believe the bigger problem is the fringe left. Conservatives tend to be fairly moderate by today's standards. You have staunch and diehard conservatives for sure. But with the left joining the ranks of the Trump base, you have people who are willing to say, we should probably work on some, initiative of some sort. We do believe in America and America's goals and how we can make the world a better place. But the left is just trying to give everyone everything and destroy everything. So I ask you, what kind of future do we want? Do we want lockdowns where the elites decide that we shouldn't have the right to live in comfort because we're the rabble, but they get to? And they empower leftists who just destroy everything from our businesses with force to, advocating for policies that just erode our economic base. Or do we want a future where we say, we find a way to reach post-scarcity. We develop replicator technology and spaceships to the stars. Do we expand? Do we succeed? Do we continue our growth just in a way that is more sustainable and brings us to new worlds and new civilizations or whatever? I know, Star Trek, right? My vision for a future is, right now, we have decentralized economics. That's the way capitalism kind of works. I choose to make something, you choose to watch it, someone buys ads, the system churns. But it's not perfect. I'm not a laissez-faire capitalist. I think we need some kind of initiative where we say, here's a goal that we're working towards. But guess what? We have taxes. The government can decide to spend money in certain places. It's not so easy. I see the left as trying to bring us back down to some kind of tribalistic, primitive style of culture. I'm not saying that as a derogatory statement. I'm saying they want to turn back the clock as far as possible to when we were just forest dwelling and, savanna dwelling nomads. While sure, that would probably preserve the ecosystem, we eventually just cease to exist. If that's the case, that's nothing. It's nothing. It's nowhere. We go nowhere. I want a future of progress, of human success. So anyway, long story short, because I'm ranting about this stuff. The gist of what I'm trying to get at is we have leaders in this country. They're not leaders. I shouldn't even say that. Political elites with power that would rather you suffer and they get the rewards because it's better for everyone this way. We don't want people getting sick, so you sacrifice. Imagine what kind of future that would be if we carry on this path of what, say, of what Pelosi and Newsom are doing, and Cuomo to an extent. That guy's doing other things. You'll end up with a class of despotic royalty, corporate overlords, which we're almost already at, taking away from the rabble. It kind of reminds me of the Time Machine, where like in the future, you've got the smart underground dwelling dudes and then the really dumb ones. It's almost as if like that's where we're heading. They're going to make a bunch of poor people do the rabble work and live as nomads while they get to float up in Elysium in the space station. That's not ideal. I don't believe in that. I don't want to live that way. Maybe it's just fantasy, right? Maybe we're not going to get to that point. Maybe we'll pull through this in such a way that humanity, strives and succeeds, and we become more powerful in many ways, and we improve the quality of life on Earth. There's always going to be corrupt people who want power, and we've got to do something about it. These people are not smarter than anybody else. I mean, some of them are. They're smart people. They exist. But there's no reason that they're allowed to destroy our lives while they get to go to their fancy dinners. I just don't think so. And that's a big divide that's happening right now with people like Fauci saying, do what you're told. This is what we get. The resistance lefty blue checks on Twitter saying it's for your own good. And everyone else saying freedom. I think a little healthy mix of both is due, right? Here's the issue. Of course, there are many conservatives that say, I'll wear a mask. I'll do what I need to do. But don't burn the system to the ground. Meanwhile, the left tends to be getting more and more zealous. That recipe for disaster. Because eventually, these two ideologies can't coexist. Oh, whatever, man. I think the lockdowns are going to come. If you don't want a lockdown, you better be crossing your fingers that Donald Trump can pull off these legal victories because he's not going to allow it. Joe Biden will do it. He'll do it fast. And he'll bring you your dark winter. So we'll see. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. It's a different channel from this one. Go check it out. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.